Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. Two attractive women dining on the terrace of the restaurant attracted the male gazes of passers-by, but the friends were too engrossed in communicating with each other to pay attention to them. "How long has it been, Melanie?" a tall, dark-haired woman asked. "It feels like I haven't seen you in ages." The second woman was blonde and a year or two younger than her friend. "I know, Jerry, and I'm embarrassed about it, but between graduate school and family life, it was hard to find time for anything else. How is the business school going? You must be close to getting your MBA degree." "Yes, it's almost ready. We have spring break next week, and then there are only a few weeks of classes left before I get my diploma. I've already submitted my thesis, so I don't have to worry about it. And even better, it looks like I'll be excused from all exams. Then everything should be smooth." "That's great, Melanie. Congratulations. Do you already have a job?" "No. I've really been studying a lot for the last 2 years, so I plan to take a short break before getting involved in labor wars. I want to relax and have some fun before I get back to work. But enough about me. And how are you doing? Is there a special man in your life?" "I'm fine, but I'm still looking for the right mister." The blonde gave her brunette friend an appraising look. "With your looks, I wouldn't be in a hurry to settle down. I bet you could go out with different guys every night if you wanted to." Jerry gave her friend a sarcastic smile. "Believe me, Melanie, living alone these days is not all you can dream of. To find one decent guy, you have to go through a dozen scoundrels, and frankly, it's starting to get boring. To tell you the truth, I'm a little jealous of you, happily married to such a wonderful guy like Adam. And speaking of Adam, how is your handsome husband?" "I think he's fine." "Oh, I think I just heard a discouraging word. What's the matter, Melanie? Isn't everything okay between you two?" The blonde shook her head. "It's not that we have any problems. It's just that Adam is so busy with his own business that we don't have much time to spend together. And even when we do, we don't have much money to spend on entertainment. Well, he spends all this time on his company to build a future for the two of you. And as for the money, I suspect that postgraduate studies are not cheap. I know, and I appreciate it. But sometimes I just want to go out and have fun like I used to. At school, all my classmates talk about is going to parties and meeting people in bars. Meanwhile, I'm sitting at home watching reruns on TV." The dark-haired woman looked at her friend shrewdly. "Aim, is there anyone in particular at school that you would like to go to a party with?" Melanie laughed. "You've always been able to read me too well." Then she leaned forward so that she wouldn't be overheard. "Actually, there is one freshman, Carl, who is very nice." She blushed. "And he definitely likes me too. Every time we're together, he goes out of his way to say something really sweet about how good I look and how well I'm doing at school." Jerry shook her head. "I don't think Adam will be very happy to hear about it. It's just a harmless flirtation. It doesn't mean anything. But you're right. Adam is pretty old-fashioned about these things. That's why I'm not going to tell him." She shifted in her seat. "But I can't help but remember how it was before I got married. It was so much fun playing on the field and meeting different guys. I miss all of this. You need to be careful, friend. You have a very good husband, and you shouldn't risk losing him. You know Adam will never tolerate this if he catches you fooling around. And if you ever did, I bet there are many other women who would be more than happy to comfort him after that." I know. And honestly, I want to spend the rest of my life with him, start a family and all that. It's just that I'd like to have some fun before things get so serious." She lowered her voice and leaned closer again. "Speaking of the guy I told you about, yesterday he asked me to go to Florida with him for spring break. If there was some way to do this without Adam finding out, I probably would have agreed." She leaned back and laughed dismissively. "But this is just a fantasy. It will never happen." Jerry sat down and looked at Melanie for a long time. Finally, she nodded her head as if she had made a decision. "Don't be so sure. I know how you can do this and get away with it." Melanie let out a sigh that was equal parts disbelief and delight. "You're kidding. How? Are you sure you want to jeopardize your marriage just for a week? Long affair? If I could be sure Adam would never find out, then why not? But you're just teasing me, Jerry. There's no way I can get away with something like this." "There is, and it's actually quite simple." Jerry began to put off each step on her fingers. "First, you need to create a new mailbox on Gmail. Get him under some anonymous name, something like Good Friend. Then you use that account to send Adam an anonymous email warning him that his wife is having an affair. Will I tell him I'm having an affair? It's crazy. Why would I do that? Jerry continued unperturbed. More precisely, you would write that Melanie is having an affair with some person whom Adam does not know and will not be able to easily verify. And what will it do? It will distract his attention from your hot boyfriend from graduate school. Yes, but it will make Adam suspect me. Exactly. But when he fails to find the guy you're supposed to be having an affair with, he'll have no choice but to meet you and demand to know what's going on. But I don't want him to suspect me. No, you don't want to. Therefore, when he runs into you, you will be very angry with him for not trusting you. In fact, you will be so angry that you will declare a time out in your marriage. Doesn't your mom live in Florida? Melanie was taken aback by the sudden change. Yes, why? Great. In anger, tell Adam that you're going to go to Florida for spring break to be with your mother and decide what to do with your marriage. Then, while he's here in town, desperately trying to find a mysterious man, you're having your little fling with Carl in Florida. How am I going to explain all this to my mother? Jerry rolled her eyes. You don't have to. In fact, you shouldn't even see your mother while you're there. But what if Adam calls her? Tell him not to do it. Make it clear that you need a full break to sort things out. He shouldn't try to contact you or your mother while you're away. Warn him that if he tries, you may not come home at all. Melanie stared at her friend for a moment, considering her plan. Finally, her face brightened. You know, Jerry, I can see how this could work. But what happens when I get back? It's simple. By then, Adam will miss you like crazy. And since he will not be able to find the mysterious man who is allegedly having an affair with you, he will come to the conclusion that someone maliciously played him. He will feel very guilty and will beg you to forgive him for not trusting you. You'll forgive him and everything will be fine. You'll have fun, and then you and Adam will be together again, closer than ever. What about the mysterious man I'm supposed to be having an affair with? Maybe I should just come up with a name for him. You can, but I think it will be much more plausible if it is a real person. Choose someone with whom you cannot have an affair, for example, someone very old or living far away or deceased. That way, if Adam manages to track him down, you'll be safe. Hey, I think I know the perfect guy. I had a creepy professor in one of my classes in my first year of graduate school. He must have left town because I never saw him again. How do you like it? Perfect. Melanie abruptly reached across the table and squeezed her friend's hand. You're the best, Jerry. I'm so excited. I really think it's going to work. Then she hugged herself and trembled slightly. I can't wait to tell Carl. Adam Weatherby, is there any news from the supplier about the parts that we ordered? When his foreman shook his head, Adam returned to his office and sank into his second-hand swivel chair. He rubbed his forehead anxiously. If these details do not appear in the near future, we will miss the deadline for the delivery of prototypes. After the foreman left, Adam sat trying to develop a backup plan. When his email inbox rang, he quickly turned around to check his incoming messages, hoping for good news. But when he saw that the subject of the email was about your wife, he almost deleted it. But curiosity got the better of him, and he opened the message. I hate to tell you this, but Melanie is having an affair with Professor Bellingham. I just thought you should know. A good friend. What the hell? Stunned, Adam read the message again, unable to comprehend the terrible words. What kind of nonsense is this? That can't be true. Melanie wouldn't cheat on me. Someone must be trying to stir up trouble between us. But who is doing this and why? He started to delete the message but hesitated. That's the last thing I need to deal with right now. It must be a mistake, a misunderstanding. But his practical side did not allow him to ignore it. Damn it, of course it can't be true. Angrily, he clicked on the reply button in the email. Who are you? Why are you making such a terrible accusation? What evidence do you have? He pressed send and then stared at the screen in impotent rage. It's not going to do any good. It is unknown when and if this guy will answer. And there is no way to track it. Perhaps it's better to start finding out who this Bellingham is. He opened a browser, went to the university's webpage, and searched for the faculty of the Graduate School of Business. Professor Bellingham was not on staff. He went back to the faculty registry and searched all over the university, and again he was unlucky. Disappointed, he tried to look at other educational institutions in the area, but to no avail. This is crazy, he muttered to himself. Did my good friend just make up a name? Then he tried to search on Google, and the search engine quickly came up with 5 names, but 2 of them were female and none were local. I knew it was a fake. Someone is trying to prank me or drive me crazy. But again, he couldn't bring himself to delete the email. Now that the letter had been sent, a seed of doubt began to grow in his mind. God, what if she's having an affair? I didn't see any signs, but that doesn't mean anything. Besides, I was so busy at work that I hardly spent any time with her. What if she gets upset about being ignored? I remember that there were times when she wanted to go somewhere to have fun, and I refused her. But damn it, I work almost 70 hours a week trying to set up a business. Doesn't she understand that? Can't she see that I'm doing all this for us? And, to be honest, we really can't afford anything extravagant. Her business school tuition is getting more expensive every year, and I'm pouring everything that's left into this place to try to speed up the process. And yet I guess I neglected her. Feeling guilty, he started checking his calendar, trying to find the last time they met together. After scrolling through 3 months ago and finding nothing, he stopped searching. Damn. But even as his guilt intensified, he felt a corresponding surge of anger. I may not have given Melanie as much attention as she wanted, but that doesn't give her the right to cheat on me. In addition, we discussed the sacrifices we would have to make when we decided to start a business. Then she agreed 100%, so she hardly has the right to complain now. His thoughts were interrupted when his foreman poked his head through the doorway. Hey, Adam, good news. The components we need have just appeared. Thank God. Okay, we need to unpack them as soon as possible and deliver them to the workshop. When the foreman disappeared, Adam took a deep breath. Well, in any case, one crisis has been averted. He smiled wryly. I think it means that I can spend more time taking care of my wife. After spending even more time fruitlessly searching the internet, he sat back and tried to think. If Mel is really having an affair, then he just has to be with someone from the university. Maybe my good friend got the name wrong, or maybe the university just didn't post his name on its website. He returned to the university's webpage and found the phone number of the HR department. When the secretary answered his call, he asked if Professor Bellingham was on the faculty. Which faculty, please? I think it's a graduate business school, but I'm not sure. There was a pause, and then the voice returned to the line. I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have Professor Bellingham at the business school. What about other schools? There was a sigh. Wait, please. This time it took longer to wait. When the woman finally returned to the line, her manners disappeared. Sir, Professor Bellingham is not at the university. A thought struck him. Maybe he was an employee a year or two ago? I can only confirm our current teaching staff. Why? That's university policy, sir. Is there anything else I can help you with? No, you did everything you could, he said, trying not to sound too sarcastic. He made another attempt by calling the dean of the business school. He walked back and forth with the administrative assistant, but in the end, he didn't learn anything else. By this time, Adam's head was throbbing. I need a good drink, he muttered, hanging up the phone in disgust. But this thought gave him an idea, and he picked up the phone again. Hi, Jerry. This is Adam. Listen, is there any chance that you can meet me after work at Maxie's place and have a drink? I have a problem, and I really need your advice. No, I wouldn't want to talk about it over the phone. Can you? Great. I'll meet you there at 6 o'clock. Before leaving, he checked his email again. There were no more messages from the good friend. Entering Maxie's place, Adam noticed Jerry sitting at a table in a quiet corner. In front of her was a glass of white wine and a mug of his favorite draft beer. He came over and kissed her on the cheek. Thanks for the beer and, more importantly, for coming tonight. I really needed to talk to you. When he sat down, she took a sip of wine and then looked at him for a long time. Okay, Adam, spit it out. What's happening? Are there any problems in your business? Not knowing where to start, he stared into his mug for a moment and then said, Do you happen to know Professor Bellingham from the university? She shook her head, puzzled. Bellingham? I've never heard of him. And what? He sighed and handed her a printout of the email. I got this today. She scanned it quickly, sighed, and read it again. Then she looked at him with sympathetic eyes. Poor Adam. No wonder you didn't want to talk about it on the phone. What do you think about it? I don't know what to think, Jerry. I can't believe this is true. But I also don't want to bury my head in the sand and pretend that everything is fine. I spent the whole day trying to track down this mysterious Professor Bellingham, but I ran into a stone wall of the university. Now I do not know what to do. I can't afford to hire a private investigator, and I don't have time to play detective myself. That's why I wanted to talk to you. You've been a good friend to Melanie and me for a long time. Please tell me what you think about it." She took another sip of wine and then reached out to give his hand a quick squeeze. "What you're really asking is, do I think she's having an affair? I can't give you that kind of absolute certainty. On the one hand, I have not seen or heard anything that would make me think that she is unfaithful to you. On the other hand, I haven't seen her that much in the last few months." His face twisted in annoyance, and she hurried on. "You know as well as I do that there are people who like to escalate the situation, and it could be something like this. Or you may have business enemies who would like you to divert attention to the friction in your marriage. Maybe there are other scenarios that I haven't even thought about. What I do know is that you can't ignore it and hope it goes away. I know how much you believe in marital fidelity, and I know that any hint that your marriage has been broken will corrode you. If you don't handle this, then eventually doubts will kill your relationship with Melanie as effectively as an affair." He looked at her hungrily. "I know you're right, Jerry, but what can I do? In my opinion, you should show this damn thing to Melanie. She needs to know that someone has accused her of infidelity, and she deserves the opportunity to shed the light she has on it. After all, Adam, if someone made a similar accusation against you, you'd want to know, wouldn't you?" He sat in silence for a minute, then nodded his head. "You're right. If I don't share this with Melanie, it will affect how I behave with her. Ultimately, it will separate us just as surely as if she really cheated on me." He stood up and hugged the dark-haired woman. "Thanks for helping me think this through, Jerry. I don't know what I would do without you. You know how much I care about both of you, Adam. If there's anything I can do to help, please let me know." He nodded gratefully and headed for the door, and she stood and watched him go. When he returned home, Melanie was already waiting for him. "Where have you been, Adam? I tried to call, but you didn't answer." He ignored her question. Taking her hand, he led her to the sofa and sat down next to her. "I have to show you something, Mel. Something that has confused me very much." She sat down next to him, her face betraying her nervousness. He handed her the printout. "I received this by email today. Can you tell me anything about it?" She read it quickly. Then, to his surprise, she jumped up and started screaming. "Do you think I'm cheating on you? I don't believe it. Have you received some shitty accusation from some anonymous friend, and are you ready to accuse me of adultery?" No, honey, I'm not accusing you of anything. If you're not accusing me, then why did you show me this dirty lie?" She snatched out the printout, crumpled it into a ball, and threw it at him. "You might as well stick a knife in my heart. It causes me such deep pain. You trust someone who is too cowardly to even sign his name more than your own wife." She grabbed her purse and headed for the front door. "I can't even look at you right now. I'm leaving and I don't know when I'll be back." With that, she ran out, slamming the door behind her. A moment later, he heard the roar of her car's engine, and then the screech of tires as she pulled out of their driveway. "Oh shit, I didn't expect that at all. I feel even worse now than before," he moaned, sinking back onto the couch and holding his head in his hands. As he sat there, Adam's first thoughts were defensive. Why was she so upset? She didn't even let me finish. I didn't accuse her of cheating. I just showed her what someone else had written, that's all. But he knew the answer even before he finished. If Mel had given this note to me, I probably would have exploded too. But what was I supposed to do, act like everything was fine? Jerry was right. I can't just ignore the letter. It wouldn't be fair to Mel or to me. Even though he spent the rest of the evening mentally reviewing the situation, he was no closer to figuring out what to do compared to how he started. He knew he and Mel needed to talk, but he couldn't even decide what to say to her. All he knew for sure was that he wanted to bring his wife home to try to mend the relationship. Emotionally exhausted, Adam felt that he was starting to get tired, but he was determined not to go to bed until Melanie returned. After another hour of waiting, he lay down on the couch and soon dozed off. Sometime after midnight, he was awakened by the sound of the door opening. When he got up, Melanie came into the living room and stared at him with her hands on her hips. "Mel, we really need to—" "I don't want to talk about it right now," she cut him off abruptly. "You can stay on the couch overnight, and we'll talk in the morning." Without waiting for an answer, she turned on her heel and headed down the hall to their bedroom. When he heard the door slam, he groaned and lay back on the couch, hoping that sleep would return. It took a long time. Adam usually got up early to get to the office before everyone else. But although his internal clock woke him up at the usual time, he felt obligated not to leave until Melanie showed up so they could talk. He made coffee and sat down at his laptop to read the news while waiting. It was almost 8 o'clock when Melanie entered the kitchen. Adam was shocked to see that she was dragging a suitcase behind her. "Where are you going, Melanie?" "I thought we were going to—" Before he could finish, she raised her hand to stop him. "It was a terrible shock, Adam. This calls into question our entire marriage. I need to be alone to think about what happened. Spring break starts tomorrow, and I'm going to go to Florida to visit my mother." She glared at him. "I plan to spend the whole week there and return to classes next Monday. I don't want to hear a word from you while I'm gone. I need this time for myself. Don't call me, don't call my mother, don't call my mother's house. Do you understand?" He nodded helplessly. "I'm serious, Adam. If you try to call, I might not come home at all. Understood?" He nodded again. "Okay," she said and walked out the door to her car, dragging her suitcase behind her. When she left, Adam sat in shock for several minutes. Finally, he returned to the bathroom to shave and change his clothes. Then he drove gloomily to work. When he got to the office, good news was waiting for him. His foreman took the initiative to distribute the missing components to the appropriate stations on the model production line, and testing went smoothly. "At least the business won't collapse and burn down today, unlike my marriage," Adam told himself bitterly. In the afternoon, he was working on a spreadsheet when the phone rang. When he answered, he heard that Jerry was on the line. "I was worried and wanted to know how you were doing." "How did it go last night with Melanie?" "Oh, well, it's a long, sad story," he said dejectedly. "Oh, that doesn't sound very good. Can we get together to discuss this over a drink again?" "That would be great, Jerry. In the same place, okay?" Before leaving, he checked his email again, but there was still nothing from the good friend. When he entered the bar, Jerry immediately noticed dark circles under his eyes. "Poor Adam. Looks like you didn't get enough sleep last night. Tell me what happened." He took a long sip from his beer mug and began to talk about yesterday's skirmish and Melanie's morning departure. Jerry looked at him with a mixture of sadness and guilt. "Oh, Adam, I feel so terrible. You followed my advice, and it turned out to be the wrong thing at all." "No, Jerry. I've thought about it a lot, and I'm convinced that it was the only thing I could do. Of course, I didn't expect Mel to react so violently, but there was no way I could keep this letter to myself and pretend that nothing had happened. Now I can only hope that she cools down and we can discuss everything when she gets home." "You say that very sweetly, Adam, but I still feel guilty about what happened. So what are you going to do by the end of this week?" "I do not know, Jerry. If Mel and I don't talk about what happened, I don't see any way to move on. Maybe I'll wait a few days and then try to call her." "No, Adam. That's the only thing you shouldn't do. She already thinks you don't trust her. If you try to contact her after she explicitly told you not to, it will only prove to her that she was right." "Yes, I guess I understand that, but I feel helpless as hell. I do not know a way to find out who sent the email. The only thing I can do while she's gone is keep trying to figure out who this Professor Bellingham is." "It makes a lot of sense. If you could find him, maybe he could fill in some of the blanks for you." Over the next few days, Adam repeatedly tried to solve the mystery of the anonymous letter. Despite his lack of success, he was still convinced that Bellingham was somehow connected to the university. Then he started brainstorming. Maybe the reason I can't find this guy is because he's a graduate, not a teacher. Well, I'm a graduate too, so maybe the graduate department can help. When he called and identified himself as a graduate, Adam was immediately transferred to the development department. The guy who answered the call wrote down all the necessary information about Adam's address, phone number, and email. Then he asked how much Adam wanted to contribute to the alumni fund. No, I'm not calling to make a contribution. I'm trying to find Professor Bellingham. I think he might be a graduate." The man made him wait while he checked several databases. "I'm sorry, sir, but it seems that we have never had graduates with that name." "Really? What about graduate schools?" "I checked them too." "Maybe he's not a graduate. Maybe he just studied for a year or two, and then dropped out or transferred. The guy seemed to have lost interest. I'm afraid I can't help you. There are only graduates in our database. Is there anything else I can do for you?" After Adam refused him, he hung up the phone and cursed in frustration. "Damn it. All I've managed to achieve is to ensure that I'm invited to the next graduate fundraising campaign." Having made no progress either on the phone or over the line, he took an hour off the next day to attend graduate business school. When he got there, it was almost empty. "It's spring break, dumbass," Adam swore to himself. But a few people did turn up, and he began to intrusively walk from one office to another, begging for information about Professor Bellingham. Finally, the assistant dean met him face to face. "Sir, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to leave. If you do not comply, we will be forced to call campus security." Adam apologized and hurriedly left, more upset than ever. Returning to his office, he sat down heavily at his desk. After another futile email check, he put his head in his hands. What should I do now? At that moment, his work phone rang. When Adam answered, an unfamiliar voice asked, "Are you the young man who's looking for Professor Bellingham?" When Adam confirmed that he was, the man continued, "My name is Dr. Avery Mayfair. I am a member of the faculty of the Graduate School of Business, and perhaps I can help you. But first, let me ask you, why are you trying to find Professor Bellingham?" Adam hesitated to discuss his situation with a stranger, but desperation got the better of him, and he briefly told Dr. Mayfair about why he was looking for the missing professor. When he finished, the caller made a contemplative sound. "I see. I overheard your questions at school today, and the way you put some of the questions made me wonder if there might be something like that. Anyway, I think I can reassure you, young man. 2 years ago, Bellingham was an adjunct professor at the graduate school. He was a decent teacher, but unfortunately the enrollment for his course turned out to be below our minimum requirements. His course was canceled and his contract was not renewed." "I see," Adam said. "It means there's something else," Dr. Mayfair continued. "At the beginning of the current academic year, I received a message from Professor Bellingham. He wrote to tell me that he had found a job at Black Hills State University in South Dakota." "Is he in South Dakota?" Adam asked, puzzled. "That's right," the professor confirmed. "And there's something else you might want to know." In the same message, Professor Bellingham informed me about his recent wedding to his longtime roommate, Harold. Harold? That means Bellingham. Exactly. Dr. Mayfair, thank you so much for your call. I still don't understand why someone would send me such a treacherous letter, but now I'm sure it was a lie. I was hoping I could calm you down. Sir, may I ask you one more question? Why did you decide to call me? Don't get me wrong, I'm very grateful, but I'm just a stranger to you. The tone of the professor's voice changed. I don't mind telling you, young man. Many years ago, something very similar happened to me. My wife left me to run away with her lover, so I deeply sympathize with anyone who might find themselves in a similar situation. Fortunately, in this case, the warning you received turned out to be far-fetched, so I'm glad I was able to dispel your doubts. But as you can imagine, I have very strong feelings towards anyone who interferes with marriage. If this statement were true, I would not hesitate to inform you. Thank you, sir. You can't imagine how much I appreciate what you've done. In the evening, Adam called Jerry to tell her the good news. I still don't know who is trying to destroy my marriage, but now I know for sure that Mel is not having an affair with Professor Bellingham. Are you sure you can trust this Dr. Mayfair? Absolutely. After the call, I searched for him and found him at the faculty of the business school. He's an elderly man, probably in his late 60s, and he seems to be respected. But to make sure, I also checked Bellingham on the Black Hills website. Of course he was there. That's great, Adam. You must be very relieved. Yes, it is. But now my problem is what to tell Mel when she gets home. It's easy, Adam. Judging by what you told me about your confrontation with her, she never gave you a chance to talk. When she comes back, tell her that you never had any doubts about her. Tell her that you've already found out about Bellingham, that you tracked him down as soon as you received the letter. But because she reacted so violently, you didn't have a chance to tell her about it. If you play your cards right, Adam, she'll apologize to you. I do not know, Jerry. In fact, it wasn't like that. He heard the smile in her voice. Come on, Adam. Is it really that bad to embellish the truth a little to get what you want? Melanie. On Sunday, before returning to town, Melanie surprised Jerry with a phone call. Hi, girlfriend. I just wanted to ask you how Adam is doing before I go home. I'm a little nervous about what I'll have to face when I arrive. The only thing I know for sure is that you owe me a lot for everything I did for you while you were busy with your affair. Thanks to my little help and luck, you will be able to return to your husband, and your marriage will be in better shape than ever. With that, she continued to describe the week, ending with Adam finding out about Bellingham's whereabouts. If you play your cards right when you get home, Adam will apologize to you, you will apologize to him, and everything in your life will go back to normal. There was a pause on the line. What if I don't want everything to go back to normal? I don't understand, Melanie. What do you want to say? It's just that last week I had an explosion. Carl, the guy I was with, is so funny. Melanie's voice became a little hoarse. And most importantly, he is a fantastic lover. Anyway, I'm not ready for my little adventure to end yet. I want to keep seeing him, at least until the end of the semester. Come on, Jerry. You have to help me find a way to help me out. Wait, Melanie. You're already taking a big risk by going away with this guy for a week. If you try to keep the romance alive here in the city, you're really raising the odds, girl. Maybe, but you have to admit your little plan worked perfectly. I bet you can figure out how I can do it again. Come on, Jerry, please. This guy is really hot. I was afraid that something like this might happen. There was a long pause. Okay, Jerry said slowly. I can come up with a plan to do what you want. But you have to understand that you will jeopardize your marriage with Adam. He's a good guy, Melanie. He is a hardworking, loyal, and true family man. Men like him don't meet every day. Are you sure you want to risk all this for a little pleasure between the sheets? Melanie chuckled. You turned me on with the phrase, I can come up with a plan. Okay, but don't say I didn't warn you. Now here's what you need to do. Do you still have that email account you created? Of course. You told me to keep it active. Good, because you need to send another letter from a good friend. Only this time you will send a message to yourself, to your regular email account. Well, all right. What will be in the new letter? Everything is exactly the same as in the previous one, only this time you write that Adam is having an affair with me. What? But that's not true, and Adam knows it. How can this help? It's simple. The first letter accused you of having an affair. Adam found out that you couldn't have been unfaithful to Professor Bellingham, but he may still have doubts about your loyalty. Wait, Jerry, did you tell me that a letter from Bellingham would give me freedom in my relationship with Carl? That's how it was. But now, after he receives the second letter, he will have no doubts. He's already proven that you didn't have an affair with Bellingham, and he knows for sure that he doesn't have an affair with me. Obviously, a good friend is a complete liar, which means Adam has no reason to doubt you anymore. This means that you can get away with almost anything you want without arousing Adam's suspicions. There was silence on the line. Then Melanie exclaimed, Jerry, you're a genius. I do not know how you come up with all this, but you just gave me a hall pass that I can use until the end of the semester. There are 2 more things you need to do, Melanie. First, make sure Adam tells me about the second letter. Okay, but why? Because that way I can reinforce the idea that you are trustworthy and this unknown friend is not. Oh, that's good. He really cares about you, so he will listen to your advice. Now, what else? After you send a message to yourself, don't forget to log out of your good friend email account. What if Adam accidentally finds him? Oh my God, no. In fact, you should probably log out of both of your email mailboxes when you're not using them. You don't want Adam to find love notes from Carl, do you? I warned Carl never to email me, but it's still good advice. It's better to be safe than sorry. When Adam returned home from work that evening, he was alarmed to find Melanie crying. Since she had returned from Florida, everything had been going so well between them that the sight of her upset face took him by surprise. What's the matter with you, Mel? What happened? What is it? He asked, rushing to her. Oh, Adam, it's starting all over again, she said with tears in her eyes, handing him a copy of the letter. You know that's a lie, don't you? Of course, darling. I know that you will never cheat on me, just as I will never cheat on you. And even if you had, I know it would never have happened to Jerry. She's such a good friend to both of us that she would never do anything like that. Damn it, someone is still trying to make trouble for us, and I have no idea who or why. There must be some way to track these things. She looked up at him hesitantly. Are you going to tell Jerry about this? Do you think I should? I think you should. Like it or not, she's involved now. It wouldn't be fair to her not to tell her about it. The next morning, when Adam called, Jerry answered amiably. Well, how are the 2 lovebirds doing today? Adam's tone was solemn. We're fine, Jerry, but there's something new that I need to talk to you about. Can you meet after work? Actually, I plan to work at home after lunch. Could you come to my house? Of course, it's good. I'll come in between 6:30 and 7. When Jerry opened the door to her apartment that evening, she immediately noticed the solemn expression on Adam's face. What's the matter, Adam? I've been worried ever since you called. He shook his head. I'm sorry, Jerry, but it looks like you got caught up in this Melanie and me thing. When she looked at him blankly, he handed her a copy of the last letter. After reading it, she looked at Adam in despair. But it's just ridiculous. We don't have an affair. I would never do that to Melanie. I hope she knows that, he nodded. She knows. In fact, she told me the same thing. Jerry shook her head in confusion. I'm glad to hear that. But what do you think it all means? I think it means that someone really wants to stir up trouble between Melanie and me. First the warning about Professor Bellingham, now this. The only thing I can think of is that I have an enemy, perhaps a business competitor. But I have no idea who it might be. But anyway, since this seems to be about you now, Mel and I decided we should warn you about it. She nodded. I'm glad you did it, Adam. You're always so caring. But I do not know what we can do about it unless the mysterious person does something openly or makes a mistake. I don't think calling the police will do any good. I agree with that, Jerry, but it's so frustrating. I'm tired of all this mess and I just want whoever it is to leave us all alone. How does Melanie take it? She's very upset. When I came home, she was in tears. I'm not surprised, especially after the ordeal that the first one caused. Look, Adam, I think Melanie is pretty fragile right now. Between all this and the fact that she's so close to graduating from high school, I guess she's a bundle of nerves. You have to take care of her as much as possible. Do you think maybe both of us should just block all mail from this account? This may be a mistake. If he sends anything else, I think you'll want to know about it. Yes, you're right, but how do I protect the chalk? For starters, if you get another one of those damn letters, I wouldn't tell her about it, at least not right away. If anything, I think you should check her emails on your laptop every chance you get. If she receives another email, you can forward it to your email before she sees it. That way you won't have to involve her. Yes, I think it's a good idea. He stood up. I'm really sorry that you had to be dragged into all this. If this is supposed to be an apology, then I don't need it. You are very dear to me and I will do everything to help. He smiled gratefully. I'd better get home to see how Melanie's doing. He started to walk away, then turned around, hugged Jerry and kissed her on the cheek. Thank you for being such a good friend. The fact that you were with us during all this means a lot to me. When Adam returned home, he was pleasantly surprised to find Melanie in a much more cheerful mood. The next morning, she was even more cheerful, got up early to have breakfast with her husband. This is a real celebration, Melanie. I don't see you that often before I go to work. Well, I didn't want you to leave this morning without being able to say I love you, she told him, kissing him. By the way, she added, I wanted to make sure to let you know that I'm going to a lecture on campus tonight. A few girls and I are going to have a snack after that, so I'll probably be home pretty late. Sure, Mel, it's okay. We have a lot of leftovers in the fridge, so I can have a snack here. Thanks, honey. I'll probably come home after school to bring my school stuff and change my clothes. If I don't see you, have a nice evening. Knowing that Melanie would not be home, Adam stayed late at the office. For a change, business has started to take off. A large potential customer really liked the samples of the new product, and Adam hoped that they would make a trial order. At least something is becoming clearer. Now I just need to figure out who's playing email games with Mel and me. He was still thinking about the mysterious good friend when he entered the house. As he started to walk into the bedroom, he noticed Melanie's laptop sitting on the table. I don't think she needed him for the lecture. Then he remembered Jerry's offer. I wonder if she still logs into her email. If so, then we need to check if she got anything new from this bastard. The laptop came to life when he opened the case. The email page was not open, so he clicked on the Gmail link to check if it was registered. When he did, a window opened with an offer to select an account. He saw Melanie's email, but it was unsubscribed, so he started closing Gmail. Before he could do this, he noticed a second account under her regular mail, and when he looked at it more closely, he froze in disbelief. The account name was Good Friend. What the hell? He exploded, staring at him. He tried to open it, but Google demanded to enter the password. Not knowing the password, he closed the tab, then sank into a chair, trying to make sense of what he had just seen. How could she have an email account with that name? I know that Gmail does not allow two users to have the same addresses, but that means Melanie was the one who sent those other emails. Why would she do that? Why would she send me an anonymous letter accusing herself of having an affair? It took a moment for the answer to sink in. It must have been a distraction. She wanted me to go after some gay professor in South Dakota because she's having an affair with someone else. Then another thought hit him like a punch in the stomach. Her trip to Florida. When I showed her the letter, she pretended to be very upset with me. She told me that she was going to visit her mother, that she needed to be away from me. Now I wonder if she ever saw her mom. He quickly took out his mobile phone and pressed his mother-in-law's number. When the older woman answered, he talked politely for a minute and then said, "Tell me, Melanie and I were thinking of coming to visit next month. Won't it be too soon to see us again? Is it too early? I haven't seen you in ages. Please come when you can." He was gnashing his teeth in anger. "Okay, great. We will contact you when we have decided on the date." After saying goodbye, he broke the connection and cursed. I wonder where Melanie actually went. And more importantly, I wonder who she went with. Then he remembered the last letter, the one Melanie had received. What was it about? Damn, this should be another distraction to distract from her while she goes to lectures with her friends. That's a mean, lying fool. It made him wonder what she was wearing when she left for the evening. He hurried back to the bedroom and began sorting through his wife's underwear. It was hard for him to remember everything Melanie had, and he had almost given up. But a sudden suspicion seized him, and he returned to check another item, a garter belt. He wasn't there. Angrily, he searched for a matching bra and panties, but they weren't there either. She went out to dinner with her friends, right? He put everything back in its place and returned to the kitchen table to think. So do you like sabotage and deception? Well, two can play this game. When Melanie returned home after midnight, he was still fuming, but pretended to be asleep when she tiptoed into the bedroom. When he heard the shower turn on, he did his best not to get up and attack her. Who would have thought that going to lectures is such a sweaty job? He thought bitterly. The next morning, Adam got up very early and left for work before Melanie woke up. Next to the coffee pot, he left a note for his wife. "I hope you enjoyed yesterday's lecture. I had to leave for work early for a meeting, and I may be late today, so don't wait for me." For Adam, it was indeed a busy day, but his meetings were not with customers or suppliers. During lunch, he did a little shopping and then went home with some of his purchases to make some preparations. After that, he went to 2 more meetings, which took up the entire afternoon. When he was done, he went to dinner and a movie to kill time. Melanie was already asleep when he climbed into bed, trying not to wake her up. However, when she woke up the next morning, she found her husband waiting for her. "I thought you'd gone to work a long time ago, honey," she said, gratefully accepting the cup of coffee he handed her. "I wanted to make sure to see you this morning because I have to catch a flight to Detroit at noon. I will be away for a few days, attracting potential customers. This is something new. You don't have to travel that often. So when do you think you'll be back?" "Not before Friday evening. And if everything goes well, I can only leave there on Saturday morning. Can you handle it here while I'm gone?" She gave him a bright smile. "Don't worry about me. I'm sure I can find something to do while you're gone." "Good. Just don't forget to stay away from our good friend while I'm gone." Her face darkened. "It's not funny, Adam. I'm sorry, you're right. It's not funny." Then he waved at her, picked up his suitcase and headed for the car. He frowned as he pulled out of the driveway. She didn't even notice that I didn't say I love you. I bet she's already making plans to meet her lover again. Now I just need a little distraction to make sure her meeting takes place here at home. Instead of going to the airport, Adam left his office at lunchtime and drove to the university. Parking outside the campus, he walked briskly towards the Graduate School of Business. He had shed his usual sports jacket and slacks and was now wearing jeans and a hoodie. He had a cheap backpack slung over his shoulder. Without looking up, he headed for the reading room of the business school library. The few students who were there didn't pay any attention to him when he casually walked behind a shelf of periodicals. As soon as he was out of sight, he pulled out a string of the largest firecrackers he had managed to buy, lit an extra long fuse attached to them, and threw them into a metal container for disposal. Then he casually walked to the nearest door, propped it up with his backpack, and left. Once outside, he took out the phone he had purchased the day before and called campus security. "Come quickly, they are shooting at the business school," he shouted excitedly when his call was answered. "I think there may be several of them. They're still shooting." Then he turned the phone towards the library, and a few seconds later a series of fireworks began. He cut the connection and hurried across campus to his car when sirens started wailing and people started running in all directions. He parked in his neighborhood and was watching from his seat when, an hour later, he saw his wife's car pull into his driveway. Then a second car pulled up behind her, and a male figure appeared. "In times of danger, there's no place like home," Adam muttered with a mirthless grin. Then he got in the car and drove to the motel where he booked a room. Late in the evening, he drove through his neighborhood again to make sure that the second car was still in his driveway. Then he went back to his room and tried to get some sleep. When the adulterous couple left the house the next morning, they were surprised to find Adam leaning against the door of a stranger's car. "My God, Carl, this is my husband," Melanie gasped as she recognized him. "I thought you were in Detroit," she stammered, and then caught herself thinking, realizing how it sounded. "Honey, everything is not as it seems. Carl just came into—" "Just stop, Melanie. Every time you open your mouth, you're just lying. I don't want to hear it anymore." He grinned and gestured at the two of them. "That's exactly what it looks like. I know you both spent the night here, and I have a record of everything you said and did together. So stop talking and listen." He grabbed the manila envelope tucked under his arm and handed it to her. "I'm suing you for divorce based on adultery. Inside, you'll find my lawyer's name and number. Find yourself a lawyer and ask him to contact mine. But don't try to contact me because after what you've done, I don't intend to see or talk to you anymore." "No, honey, don't say that. It was just a one-time mistake. We can work this out, I promise." "I said stop lying," he growled. "It's not a one-time thing. You've been making love to him for weeks now. And it definitely wasn't a mistake. You planned everything in advance. I know that you sent that email to distract attention so that you could spend spring break together wherever you go. And by the way, your mom wants to know why you haven't visited her lately. I guess you were so caught up in that piece of shit," he gestured at the surly man, "that you didn't even go in to see her." He paused to turn his attention to Melanie's lover. "Oh yes, that reminds me." Adam quickly took out his mobile phone and took several pictures of the astonished man. When he realized what was happening, the man growled, clenched his fists, and took a threatening step towards Adam. Adam immediately reached into his jacket pocket and extended his hand far enough to show the butt of the gun. I, he said calmly. "I wouldn't do that if I were you. I have no intention of ruining my life by killing you, but I will be glad if you give me a chance to shoot you in self-defense." "Stop, stop." The man raised his hands in the air and took a step back. Adam turned to Melanie with a grin. "It looks like your boyfriend is a lover, not a fighter." Then his voice turned cold and hard. "Take everything you need from the house and then get out, Mel. Don't be here when I get back. I wasn't kidding when I said I never wanted to see you again." "Adam, please," she wailed. "I never wanted it to be like this." He ignored her and went to his car when she sat down on the driveway and started sobbing into her palms. On the way to his office, Adam stopped at a dumpster and threw away his phone along with a toy gun that he kept in his pocket. "I'm very glad that these things look so realistic," he grinned without malice. Back at his desk, Adam used his mobile phone to send an email with one of the photos he had taken. To his surprise, he got a call back a few minutes later. "This is Dr. Mayfair. Did you just email me a photo?" "Dr. Mayfair, I'm sorry to intrude on you again, but do you happen to recognize the man in the photo? I think his name is Carl. Is the woman standing next to him your wife?" "My ex-wife, I'm afraid. A very beautiful woman. I think she was in one of my classes last year. As for the man next to her, I really recognize him. His name is Carl Mannheim. It just so happens that he is one of my dissertators." "Carl Mannheim. That's good to hear, doctor. I'm afraid I have a score to settle with your Mr. Mannheim. So he was the snake that stained your Garden of Eden?" "Yes, in a way, but I'm afraid that my Eve was far from innocent." "I see. Very interesting. Well, I'm glad I was able to help you, although I'm sorry that the result wasn't what you wanted." "Thank you, doctor. I appreciate your time and your help despite how things have turned out. Well, good luck to you, my boy, and don't lose hope. Everything always works out for the best. Accept it from someone who was there and got to the other side. Adam, 2 months later." Adam sat across from his lawyer and was annoyed. "Have you heard from Melanie's lawyer yet? How are things going with the divorce?" "Yes, yesterday I spoke with Hannah Montrose, and today she sent a counteroffer to Melanie. The good news is that Melanie has decided not to fight the divorce anymore. Apparently, after Hannah heard the recordings you made at home, she convinced your wife not to risk them being played in court. But the bad news is that now that Melanie has admitted that the marriage is over, she seems determined to get as much out of you financially as possible." "Damn it, she lies and cheats on me, and when she gets caught, she expects me to pay her for this privilege. It's just not fair." "What does my cheating wife want?" "I usually expect to see a request for the division of all your property, but in this case, there is nothing to divide. You rent a house, you do not have a pension plan, and you have very few savings. The only asset you have is a stake in your business, which is operating at a loss. Obviously, she expects him to fail, so she only asks the court for alimony. I certainly appreciate her vote of confidence in me, Adam snapped sarcastically. So how much alimony does she want? Much more than we offered. The lawyer handed the sheet to his client. Adam looked at him and gasped. This is just ridiculous. She knows I can't afford it. If I have to shell out that amount every month, I'm essentially liquidating my business to pay her. What can I say? Melanie refuses to negotiate, so Hannah will offer Judge Abernathy exactly that. Well, I'm not going to give up and give Melanie so much money without a fight. We'll have to take our chances in court. Okay, Adam, I see what you're getting at. But remember, Judge Abernathy has absolute power. You will be left with whatever he decides. Almost exactly a month later, Adam sat in the courtroom and waited anxiously. After both lawyers presented their arguments, Judge Abernathy adjourned. How do you think everything is going? Adam asked his lawyer in a whisper. I have no idea. It can go either way, or the judge can decide on some kind of compromise. They were soon ordered to stand up when Judge Abernathy returned to the courtroom. When they sat down again, the judge asked the opposing lawyers to come to the bench. I assume your clients have not changed their position on the financial settlement. The two lawyers exchanged glances. No, Your Honor. Very good. Before making a decision, I would like to ask Mrs. Weatherby a few questions. Hannah Montrose looked scared, but then she smiled and motioned for Melanie to come forward. It's going to be okay, she whispered to her client. Don't forget to address him as Your Honor. Adam's lawyer took his seat and leaned over to him. It's usually not a good sign when a judge wants to hear more from the other side. Adam watched sourly as his future ex-wife testified. Her suit was conservatively cut, but fitted enough to show off her figure to advantage. He noticed that the judge was watching Melanie and shook his head. I think we're finished, he whispered to his lawyer. The judge looked through the papers in front of him and then turned to face the woman sitting in the witness box. So, Mrs. Weatherby, it seems that the only issue separating the two of you is the amount of alimony that should be awarded. Your offer provides for an amount significantly higher than that offered by your husband. That's right, Your Honor. And how do you justify the amount you have proposed? We are asking for a higher amount in recognition of my years of marriage, and the fact that I will have to start my life practically from scratch, Your Honor. I see. However, Mr. Weatherby claims that his only source of income is the company he founded, and which is still operating at a loss. Why do you think that Mr. Weatherby can afford the financial support you have offered? Your Honor, we claim that Adam deliberately reduces his true income by pumping funds into his business. He could easily pay the alimony I'm asking for by just modestly adjusting his current level of investment. HM, the audited financial report shows negative cash flow. Your Honor, Adam's accountants can manipulate the numbers to show any result they want. The judge raised his eyebrows. Are you saying that the financial statements are fraudulent? Melanie's lawyer paled and shook her head decisively. Melanie noticed this and quickly caught herself thinking, No, Your Honor, not at all. It's just that income can be deferred and investments accelerated, and all this remains within the framework of generally accepted accounting principles. He invests too much in his company, that's all. Adam felt his blood pressure rise. He bent down and whispered angrily, She knows it's not true. She's just trying to pressure me to get what she wants, regardless of the consequences. Meanwhile, Judge Abernathy was reviewing the summary of the case in front of him. So far, we've been focusing on your husband's investments in his business, Mrs. Weatherby. From what I see here, it follows that Mr. Weatherby also invested heavily in you, or at least in your education. If you mean my MBA degree, Your Honor, then it's true that Adam paid for my tuition, but I'm the only one who worked. I did the hard work in all the courses, passed all the tests, and wrote my dissertation. I've been working day and night for the last 2 years, including last summer. And you just graduated from university? Is that so? Yes, sir. I graduated from the university with honors, she said proudly. He nodded. Very well, Mrs. Weatherby, that's all. You can sit down. When Melanie was back next to her lawyer, Judge Abernathy lifted his glasses and looked at both sides for a moment. After hearing all the evidence, I'm going to award Mrs. Weatherby the full amount of financial support she requested. Adam grimaced and Melanie leaned over and hugged her lawyer, but the judge wasn't done yet. This financial settlement is equal to a monthly amount that will allow Mrs. Weatherby to live quite comfortably without working for the foreseeable future. However, she has just completed her higher education, which should prepare her for a highly paid position in business. To give her additional motivation to use her expensive education, I am awarding Mrs. Weatherby alimony, only for 6 months. 6 months? You can't do this, Melanie cried. I can and I did, the judge replied. Then he hit the wooden block with a hammer. The next case. Her lawyer hurriedly pulled Melanie away from the bench even as she continued to try to protest the decision. Only the appearance of a large bailiff convinced the unfortunate young woman to stop her actions. Do I have to pay alimony for only 6 months? I can live with it, Adam told his lawyer as they got up and started to leave the courtroom. How about this? Adam's lawyer replied happily. I thought we lost when the judge chose her number, but I don't think he was too impressed with how she tried to milk you dry. However, not many husbands behave so well in divorce court. I wonder what made him take you so lightly. Don't you think the fact that she didn't contest the adultery charge was a factor? He should not have taken this into account when determining the financial settlement. Adam looked back once more to see Melanie still arguing with her lawyer and grinned. Well, whatever it was, I'm happy with how it turned out. At that moment, a hand touched his shoulder, and Adam turned to see an elderly man whom he had never met before, but who seemed vaguely familiar to him. I wanted to introduce myself, the gray-haired man explained. I'm Professor Mayfair. Adam grabbed his hand and shook it tightly. Professor, it is an unexpected pleasure for me to meet you in person, sir. Thank you again for your help. What brought you to court today? The older man smiled. After our conversation, I became interested in your case, so I decided to drop by to find out how everything turned out. Then his smile widened. It also gave me the opportunity to say a few words to my old friend, Judge Abernathy. He shook Adam's hand again. I'm glad that everything turned out well for you. If I can ever help again, I'll be glad to do it. He winked. We divorced husbands should stick together. When the professor left, Adam looked after him. Interesting, he muttered, then shook his head. When he did, out of the corner of his eye, he thought he saw Jerry in the crowd of spectators. But when he turned to look, she wasn't there. Melanie. 30 months later, she pressed a familiar number on her mobile phone, and when the call was answered, she hesitantly said, Hi, Jerry, it's me, Melanie. Melanie, what a surprise. I haven't heard from you since you moved to Florida. How are you? To be honest, it's been a pretty tough few years. Actually, that's why I called. I really needed to talk to a friendly interlocutor. Of course. Tell me how you're doing. Are you working now? Actually, that's part of the problem. I thought that with my MBA, I would have no problem finding a good job. But it turned out that employers here are more interested in experience than an academic degree. Most of the jobs I was offered were internships. Oh my God, that doesn't sound very profitable. So where did you end up? When the alimony stopped, I completely despaired. I even got a job as an administrative assistant for a while, but it was terrible. So now I have started a new career in the field of financial consulting. Actually, that's one of the reasons I called. I can do an analysis of your financial situation if you don't mind. You'd be surprised how many people neglect such things. There was a pause for a moment. Oh, Melanie, I'd love to help you, but my finances are in good shape right now, and I'm pretty confident about the future. I really don't think I need any help. Sorry. It's all right, Jerry. I hear this a lot, but I decided to give it a try. It's so hard to get a foothold in this business. In fact, I had to move in with my mother to keep my expenses down. Do you live with your mother? What happened to you and Carl? Don't even mention that bastard's name. We broke up just a few months after we arrived here. Broke up? What happened? Oh, Jerry, it was terrible. Carl dropped out of school without getting an MBA. I do not know exactly what happened, but his consultant rejected his master's thesis and told Carl that he would have to start all over again. Carl felt very bitter and decided not to return. He refused to look for a job and hung around our apartment all day, playing video games and drinking. After a while, he began to take out his resentment on me. It got to the point that at some point I had to call the police on him. Oh, Melanie, how terrible for you. I think you're lucky you got rid of him. And look at it this way. Now you're free to go out and meet new people, have fun, and go dancing whenever you want. I remember how much you missed all this when you were married. Melanie sighed. Nightclubs and parties require money, Jerry, and I don't have a lot of spare funds right now. And to tell you the truth, when I go somewhere, it's not as glamorous or exciting as I used to think. In fact, I remember one girlfriend warning me that there are a lot more scoundrels than good guys. She paused, but when Jerry didn't say anything, Melanie decided to change the subject. And what about you, Jerry? How are you doing? Are you dating anyone special right now? Actually, my situation has changed quite dramatically, Mel. In fact, I'm going to get married next month. Get married? This is amazing. Who is this lucky guy? Do I know him? Yes, actually you do. This is Adam. Melanie, Adam, and I are engaged. My Adam? Are you engaged to my Adam? You can't do this. I'm afraid I already have. We're going to have a little civil ceremony in the backyard of our new house, and then we're going to fly to Paris for our honeymoon. A new house? A honeymoon in Paris? Adam can't afford all this. Not only my situation has changed dramatically, but also Adam's situation. The same month you moved to Florida, he got that big order he'd been working on for so long. After that, his business really took off. Obviously, his new product is just what the automotive industry needs, and that's not all. Earlier this year, Adam received an offer from a major manufacturer to buy his business for a fortune. He agreed, and the deal will be finalized next week. So, as you can see, you don't have to worry about our financial future. Melanie could only stutter, but Jerry wouldn't let up, and now her tone has changed. You know, all of this could have been yours, Melanie, but you weren't content with what you had. I warned you from the very beginning that you were risking everything by starting your little affair. Besides, I warned you that there will be women who will gladly pick up the pieces if your marriage breaks up. But you were the one who encouraged me. You're the one who figured out how I can... Suddenly, Melanie's voice rose in shock. My God, Jerry, it was you. You've planned everything from the very beginning. All I did was tell you about a harmless little fantasy. You manipulated me into acting on it. You tricked me into believing that I could get away with an affair. Actually, Melanie, you're exaggerating. I didn't force you to do anything you didn't want to do. All I did was give you enough rope to hang yourself. I can't believe it. I bet you're the one who warned Adam about Carl. You're smarter than that, Melanie. Think about it. If I had told Adam, he would have wondered how I knew. That wouldn't be very smart of me, would it? On the other hand, I told you not to delete your secret Gmail account and advised Adam to check his mail. I use Gmail all the time, so I was sure that he would see what he would see. So no, Melanie. I didn't tell Adam about your lover. All I did was arrange the dominoes so that they would fall where I wanted them to. I can't believe it. I trusted you, Jerry. I thought you were my friend. Jerry laughed. You know what they say. Everything is good in love and in war. You can't get away with this. I'll make sure Adam finds out what you've done, what kind of schemer you really are. He will definitely cancel the wedding as soon as he finds out the truth. I'm sorry, Melanie, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to interrupt our little conversation. Adam and I have plans for the evening, and I want to look especially good for him. Oh, and don't bother calling me back. I'll block your number as soon as I hang up. You are a treacherous, vile fool. Adam. 30 months and 1 day later, Jerry greeted her future husband with a kiss when he came home from work. Adam kissed her back and then took a piece of paper out of his jacket. You won't believe who sent me the letter today. Melanie. Oh, really? Jerry said casually. I almost forgot about her. What does she need? Adam looked at his fiancée dispassionately. Actually, she wrote to warn me about you. She says you planned everything that happened just to separate Mel and me. It's pretty wild. Can I see it? Jerry asked. He handed her the printout. She ran her eyes over it quickly, then returned it to him with a smile. Poor Melanie. She could have made her little jealous fantasy half believable if she had added something else. He looked at her curiously. She winked at him. She should have signed it Good Friend. It took him a few minutes to stop laughing.